Hello, 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 hello. I hope you are having a superb Saturday. I am Kimberly Lawson of Lawson Learning Academy. I just want to say thank you to those of you who have tuned in. Again, I'm Kimberly Lawson. I'm a speaker, I'm a business consultant, I'm a podcast host, and I'm an author. So I like to just jump on live from time to time to give you some business tips to help you. If you are a budding or novice entrepreneur, you may be well established and you still may find these tips beneficial. So before we get too deep into it, I want to tell you that in order for me to be able to see your comments that you leave for me, please give StreamYard permission to see your name. So I have that information on my social media page. It's streamyard.com/Facebook. You grant permission for me to be able to see your comments. And I definitely want you to drop some comments in the little comment box and let me know that you are listening. If you have questions or you want more information, so I encourage you to do that. Please give StreamYard permission to see your name on Facebook. So those of you just tuning in, again, I am Kimberly Lawson of Lawson Learning Academy. I am a speaker, I'm a business consultant, I am a podcast host, and I am an author. And you can see my website at the bottom of the screen. Please visit my website for more information on all things Kimberly Lawson and Lawson Learning Academy related, including my podcast, Real Talk the Podcast. So, we are right now, we are still living during the pandemic. Sorry, we're still living during the pandemic of COVID-19. And so many businesses are having some challenges. And this is what I want to talk about today. Uh, I'm going to give you tips on how to pivot in business. Any successful entrepreneur, you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to shift when things start to change in the market, when there are new opportunities. When one door closes, you need to be able to open another door. So this is all about being able to pivot in business. So that is what we are talking about today. So again, those of you just tuning in, I am Kimberly Lawson, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I want to jump right over to the comment section and say hello to Tracy Coulter. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope that you find this information beneficial. So let's get right to it. How to pivot in business. So the first thing that you need to know to be able to pivot in business, you have to be a problem solver. The most successful businesses solve problems. So that's the first thing you want to do. So let's say you have a business that is no longer necessary, it's no longer essential right now due to COVID-19, and you're looking to start something else new. Well, the first question that you want to ask is, what problems are out there? What problems? You want to solve a problem. People don't want to buy things or do things, do services with you if they feel like it's not beneficial to them. Anytime you solve a problem, of course, you're being beneficial. So you want to be a problem solver. Think about that. If you're looking to pivot your business right now, just start thinking like, okay, what can I do that will help the world right now? What can I do that will help the community right now? Solve a problem. Solve a problem. So again, I am Kimberly Lawson of Lawson Learning Academy. Today, I'm giving you tips on how to pivot in business. And if you want to leave me a comment in the comment section, please do so. But make sure you give StreamYard permission to see your Facebook name and profile. So the first tip was to be a problem solver. Tip number 2, think outside of the box. This is not the time to be inside the box. This is the time to think about non-traditional things. What hasn't been done? What can I do? Do not be afraid to think outside of the box, okay? So that is big. If you're trying to pivot in business, you must be able to think outside of the box. So you first figure out, okay, what problem is out there? Now let's think of some non-traditional ways to solve those problems. Do not be afraid to think outside of the box. So an example, very common. I love common examples. Right now, everyone needs a mask. If you had said 5 years ago that people would be having thriving businesses based on the sale of face masks, the world would have looked at you like you were crazy. It would go right back to in the earlier 1900s when people were first talking about selling water in a bottle. It's like, who's going to buy that? But there came a time when it was a necessity. And so those people who were able to think outside of the box early on, those were people who were able to pivot and angle themselves appropriately in business to take advantage of the market. So that is my tip number 2. Be able to think outside of the box. Do not be afraid of non-traditional answers. This is not the time to be afraid of non-traditional answers. So make sure that you are able to think outside of the box. So definitely just want to say again, those of you just tuning in, I'm Kimberly Lawson of Lawson Learning Academy. I am a speaker, a business consultant, a podcast host, and an author. And I encourage you to leave me a comment in the comment box. If you please do so, just so I know that you're listening, so I can definitely acknowledge your presence in this live, and I definitely thank you for doing so. Make sure that you give StreamYard permission to view your Facebook name before. So, number 1, in the tips on how to pivot in business, be a problem solver. Solve a problem. Consumers will come if you are able to make their life easier. Consumers will come if you solve a problem that they have. So that is tip number 1. Tip number 2, think outside of the box. Do not be afraid to be an innovator in the market. Do not be afraid to be the first of something. Think outside of the box. Think outside of the box. So, tip number 3, I'm being able to pivot when it comes to business. Tip number 3, don't ignore the obvious. So, once you realize, okay, this is an area of business in which a problem exists. This is an area where people are struggling. Don't ignore what the obvious answer could be. The obvious answer could be something simple. Something simple. Everything in business does not have to be complicated. Again, let's go back to my example about face masks. You have people at home that do not have industrial level sewing machines, but these people were able to think outside of the box and didn't ignore the obvious. The obvious was, hello, I know how to sew. So let me start making masks and selling them. That was an obvious answer. That was an obvious answer to a need, because once we first began living during this COVID-19 pandemic, people were flocking to stores. They were buying masks. Everyone was online on Amazon. Everyone was everywhere trying to find the N95 mask, the surgical mask, and they were out everywhere. An obvious answer was to make a cloth mask because it solves the problem. It's simple and it's out of the box. Don't ignore the obvious answer. Being able to do these things, these are ways that you are able to then pivot in business to make sure that you have longevity, to make sure that your business continues to scale. You have to be able to pivot. So I want to jump right over to the comments right now and shout out Ms. Renee Young saying hello to you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you are enjoying this live. I hope you are finding this information helpful. So that is always my goal. I always want to make sure that I am helpful, that the information I'm giving you is insightful. So let's move right along. We're talking about, those of you just tuning in, tips on how to pivot in business. So the first one was be a problem solver. Number 2, think outside of the box. Number 3, don't ignore the obvious. And my last tip for you today about being able to pivot in business is think from an opportunistic angle. Okay? That's what you have to be able to do to pivot in business. You have to be able to think from an opportunistic angle. This is your opportunity to do something that there's now a market for. So there is a restaurant that I have been a frequent customer of during this pandemic that I'm normally not a customer of. Why? Because the executive chef there and the owners were able to think from an opportunistic angle. Each week they offer a one-hit wonder. It is something that is not on their regular menu. It's always something that is fabulous. It's pre-order only. And this is doing what? This is bringing in revenue for them. This is bringing them new clients because their typical menu is a diner menu. And so now that they've been able to think from an opportunistic angle, they have now reached new clientele. They are able to keep their business going and keep their business thriving during this time. That is so, so, so important. Think from an opportunistic angle. Understand this: the bigger the problem, the bigger the profit. The bigger the problem, the bigger the profit. Please remember that. It is okay to think from an opportunistic angle. Now, I'm not saying that anyone should take advantage of people. What I'm saying is, if that now that there is a market for your services, for your product, it is okay to think about how you can now make a profit from that. So again, this is tips on how to pivot in business. That is what I've been talking about today. I am Kimberly Lawson. I am a speaker, a business consultant, a podcast host, and an author. And so from time to time, I like to jump on Facebook Live to just give you guys some quick tips that you can easily apply to your life, especially if you are a budding or a novice entrepreneur. Today, tips on how to pivot in business. So I definitely want to jump back over to the comments and just show right now hello to Frederick Chambers. He said that this is good stuff. Yay! That is so awesome. That is always my goal. I want to make sure that whatever I am bringing to you, that you find it beneficial. So I want to quickly do a recap on the tips on how to pivot in business. One, be a problem solver. People will always shop with you, do business with you if you're making their life easier, if you're solving a problem that he or she has. So remember that. Be a problem solver. Two, think outside of the box. Do not stay inside of the box. When you are pivoting in business, this is not the time to take the safe bet. No, think outside of the box. It is okay. Three, do not ignore the obvious. If there's an obvious answer, explore it. Let's see if it will work for you. There may be something there. There's a reason why it's the obvious answer, and it's definitely worth exploring. And number four, the final tip is to think from an opportunistic angle. The bigger the problem, the bigger the profit. That's what I'm telling you. So if you are a budding or novice entrepreneur, I invite you to do a free consultation with me. It's a meet and greet consultation. Visit the website, talk to kimberly.as.me. You are able to set up a free meet and greet consultation with me so that we can discuss what your business goals are, what ideas you have, and let's talk about the way of best moving forward with all of those things. I also invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, the links are up on my Facebook page, and the links are up on my website, which you can see is scrolling across the bottom. So definitely visit the website. I would love to talk to you. Even if you have a business you've been around for a while, maybe you need some tips on how to pivot your business. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can come up with a strategy together so that you are successful. Because when you're successful, I'm successful. That's how I always feel about it. And finally, in the comments, I just want to say hello to Ebony Moore. Thank you for tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. Tracy Coulter say, this is very helpful. You're welcome, Tracy. I'm so glad that you find this information beneficial. Ebony said that all of this information is so true. Thank you so much, so much, so much. So I'm going to close out here. Thank you for tuning in today.